All right. Do I have all this? All right, we'll reconvene to open session of the Roseville Joint Union High School District Board of Trustees meetings for December 16th, 2021. Good evening. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I see we have the Vice Mayor of Roseville in the house today. So Bruce Howdershaw, why don't you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, Bruce. Item 3.2 is report of action from closed session. We had 3 items, 2.1. In closed session on a motion of Board Member Hirota, seconded by Board Member Constant, the Board of Education voted to approve readmitting a student to the Roseville Joint Union High School District by a unanimous vote of 5-0. Do we have 2.2 April 2? Did I? No action was taken at the time. No, on item 2.2, human resources, public employee, discipline, dismissal, release, concern. No public action, no action was taken. No reportable action. Item 2.3 was a conference with legal counsel. Board voted to publish a written student face covering guidance by a vote of 4-1. Trustees in favor, Trustee Hirota, Trustee Huber, Trustee Tagg, Trustee Constant. Opposed was Trustee Hall. Vote of 4-1. And we'll go on to item 4.1, which is our school board reorganization. It's where we choose new officers for the coming year and select our meetings, and typically would talk about committee roles, although I think the consensus is we'll have a committee selection at our next meeting in January when the new board president can reach out and board members can contemplate what committees they'd like to be on. So we elect the president, vice president, and clerk. And we'll also appoint the superintendent as secretary of the board and authorized agent for the district. We'll designate for the year 2022 the regular board meetings to begin at 6 p.m. here at the Wood Creek High School cafeteria or at other location within the district boundaries. Staff has provided 2 calendar options for the trustees to consider. The April meeting will be held on the first Thursday of the month to accommodate spring break. June 2022 will have 2 meetings to accommodate a public hearing and approval of the LCAP and district budgets. In December 2022, meeting will be held on the 3rd Thursday of the month, December 15th, 2022, to meet the post-election requirement of holding the December meeting after the 2nd Friday of the month. Thursday, January 13th, 2022 and Thursday, August 11th, 2022 will be designated as regular board meetings beginning at 4 p.m. to be held at the location to be determined for the purpose of the superintendent evaluation. Placeholders are included for board study sessions in February and May of 2022. There's 2 schedules there, one with what we had sort of bantered around, discussed about 1 meeting per month, and the second calendar is a little more of a offers 2 meetings a month on some month, not every month, but on various months, like March, June, September, October. So just sets the schedule a couple extra months. So I know a couple board members had mentioned that, or at least one. So at this point, we want to discuss both the new officers for the coming year and the meeting dates. Board members, any comments or questions at this point?
I have two things. One, first is I'd like to take item 3 separate, just as a separate item for discussion.
Sure.
But for item number 1, kind of in going with the sort of the tradition of this board, I would like to continue this succession that we have followed for the last few years, and I'd like to nominate Scott Huber for the president, myself for the vice president, and Pete Constant for the clerk.
Okay. Do we have a second for that? Okay, and then was there discussion around that? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Congratulations, Mr. Huber, on as the new president, board president.
Thank you.
Ms. Hirota as our vice president, and Mr. Constant as the clerk. And at this point, I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay. So next is item number 2 is appoint the item number 2
Oh,
on
wait a
business.
minute, we got to do the schedule.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's number 3, right? But item number 2 is we need to appoint the superintendent as secretary of the board and as authorized agent for the district. Is there a motion to do that?
I'll second.
All right, it's moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Okay, item number 3, you want some discussion?
So when we moved
then
the
Pete.
meetings
Go ahead.
to, oh,
Julie.
me, sorry.
Julie, go ahead.
Oh, when we moved the meetings to Thursday, I had indicated that I do have a work obligation the 4th Thursdays of the month in Sacramento. And so I would request for the board that either both meetings start at 6:30 or the second one of the month on the 4th Thursday to occur to begin at 6:30 to give me adequate time to drive from Sacramento. We were doing 7 this year, and I can try to be here, but I just want to make sure I have adequate time to get to Roseville from Sacramento on the 4th Thursday of the month.
So you want, your request is that all of the board meetings start at 6:30?
Either all of the board meetings start at 6:30 or the 4th Thursday starts at 6:30.
Okay.
That's the second of the 2. I know
Okay.
that's complicated.
Okay.
But I would like to try to get us in early as much as possible. I just worry that I would have to,
Drive like NASCAR?
drive like NASCAR, and I report to a board of 20 members, and so I have to have some respect for their time.
Yeah. Pete?
Couple things. One, I brought this up when we moved to Thursdays, that if it was going to be permanent, we need to change our board policy on meetings, and we haven't done that yet. So that needs to be done if we're going to continue on Thursdays.
Is it because the board policy says Tuesdays?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to say that I'm not opposed to any start time as long as all meetings start at the same time. I think consistency is extremely important for members of the public and for us, quite frankly. The other thing is, I know I've shared this before, I do not support one meeting a month. I just think that it is problematic. There's too many things on the agenda this last year, and I'm sure we might even have more in the next year to try and cram it all into one meeting. And when we have a landscape that changes literally daily in this state, having to wait upwards of 30 days to have a board discussion on stuff, I think is not good. So I know Exhibit B or Option 2 gets us closer to 2 meetings a month. I will support that, but I just want to make it clear I really believe we should be here 2 meetings a month to do business. I don't want to be here. I understand the reason we have to start late, but I don't want to be here till 11, 12. I don't want our staff to be here till 11, 12. I don't want members of the public having to be here till 11 or 12 because we're trying to cram everything into 1 meeting a month. So those are my feelings on it.
And any other thoughts, Andrew?
Yeah, I can support Pete's option, option 2, and so that was his option, but I can see where he's coming from on, we already have longer meetings twice a month. If we pack it into 1 meeting, it could be a little bit problematic. I think option 2 is a nice balance. It just adds an extra meeting a couple months out of the year. I think a total of 4 or 5 months. And then the time-wise, I mean, obviously I'd like to start as early as possible, but to accommodate board members to get here, which is important, I could go with 6:30. For sure.
Yeah, our current, the way the language reads on the website, I think it's identical on the board policy when it used to say Tuesdays, is it says every Thursday of the month and 4th Thursday when deemed necessary. So if the goal were to try to do a lot of the agenda, up front of the month, but not so that it's overwhelming and takes us into midnight. And then when necessary, which might be every month, to do a 2nd Thursday, but the goal of moving it is, I think that would be acceptable as long as we're not here till, we're asking everybody to stay super late routinely. No, I think it's I think 2 a month is, based on what Pete says and staying really late. If we could move our meetings really early, maybe it wouldn't be an issue, but keeping the option B, I think it was, with 2 a month, but giving direction to superintendent and the cabinet to try to put the bulk of the items at the first meeting of the month, and maybe we won't have the 2nd meeting of the month. It may not be necessary, but it probably will.
Yeah, I can't foresee us being able to only have 1 meeting a month. I feel like that makes it really late and so much in 1 meeting to cover. So I like the 2 a month, and exactly what you said. If we get to a month where we don't have anything for the 2nd meeting, but I don't see that happening.
Does someone want to summarize that in a motion?
I will make a comment and then a motion if you're,
Sure.
sorry, a comment and then a motion. It's much easier to cancel the meeting than schedule a special meeting. So I definitely support that. With that being said, I would like to make a motion that we adopt option 2 for the meeting dates.
Sounds like it's okay with just having two a month.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Never mind. I thought option 2 was the 2 a month. Option 2 is the 1.5 a month on average. So we're going to adopt an alternate schedule, which will be option 3, which is not in print, and that is to continue our practice of 2 meetings per month. Obviously, we have like December where we don't do that, but I'll let staff get those dates together with meeting times to start consistently at 6:30 for the meetings, and direction to, at the next, not tomorrow's policy meeting, but the next board policy meeting, bringing the bylaw related to meetings so that we can get that accurately adjusted so the public is clearly aware of our meeting schedules. That was my motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Okay, item 5.1, announcement of meeting protocols. This is the opportunity for the public to speak to the Board of Trustees on any matter that is not on the agenda. The board is prohibited from taking action on any items that is not on the agenda. And if we have 10 or more speakers, the speakers will be limited to, on any particular item, speakers will be limited to 90 seconds. We only have one on this one, and Bruce Howdeshell, Councilmember Howdeshell. Actually, is it Vice Mayor? Vice Mayor Howdeshell.
Yeah, just a public servant like all of you, okay? Thank you. Thank you and congratulations, President Huber, on your the election,
Thank you, sir.
Vice President Hirota, Clerk Constant. That is a ringtone. I'll be quick. I did want to come forward and express, my appreciation and provide acknowledgement on the work you've been doing for many years now. It's no secret that when people, families choose communities, one of the top things that they do is they choose it for their schools, right? Also their parks, not so much on the congestion of traffic and things like that. But in the last 3 years, you've done an admirable job of having a fiscally sound school district, and you've taken on some, what I'll call, other duties as assigned, right? You've tackled some challenging topics. You've had a Zoom meeting with 500 people. I think you maxed out a Zoom meeting at one point in time. But that's because you want to be transparent and accountable, right? And you have that ethic to everyone. And you actively listen to all voices, and so you can collaboratively come to a decision. And that's the way that the governance should work at every level of our society. So you've navigated changing, COVID protocols. You've navigated the Delta variant. You were brave enough and had the initiative to set up and go to in-person learning before any other school district did. And for those who weren't comfortable with in-person learning, either teaching or their students attending, you set up a platform for them. That's very admirable, and you have my deep appreciation for all of that. As I said, you've had some challenging conversations around not only COVID, but curriculum, and you've actively listened. And you're doing all of this while you're working your day jobs, right? And so thank you for your commitment to delivering a superior educational experience, because this reflects on our entire Roseville community. I'll wrap up here. And you did this, I should have said, you did this in partnership with staff. Any organization has the ideas, but the implementation happens with your initiative and staff and that dialogue with these folks in the audience, right? You listen to them, you receive countless emails, and you respond to those emails. And that shows your transparency and accountability. And you're firm believers in equitable education for all of your students. Today I was delivering pumpkin bread to that my wife makes to the fire departments, and I went by the West Park High School. My God, has that school changed since the last time I saw it? But you've also are making sure that the existing schools, like Antelope High School and others, have the facilities they need, and they have the healthy environment in which the kids can attend. So I applaud your devotion to community. I got to tell you, Andrew, we've only known each other a short time, but one of my favorite things is when you took me to the Independence High School recognition. I think Vice President Hirota was there and then Member Hall, Trustee Hall, you and I and Andrew were at the high school graduation last year. To see that you deliver a variety of educational experiences for the students so they can achieve is very, very laudable. I commend you. I applaud you. Thank you for all you do, because it's a reflection on this great community of Roseville that we have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And so the members of the public are not confused. I accidentally skipped over him. He wanted to talk on 4.1, so I called him up at the beginning of 5.1. My apologies to the Vice Mayor. But so item 5.2, recognition of outgoing board president. Andrew, this is I know I did detect a little glee in your voice when you passed the gavel over. You have been, I have mentioned before in other settings, you have been an excellent president. You have been a wonderful public servant. You respond to by my count, every email that we receive as board members. It has been a pleasure to be not just your colleague, but your friend, and to sit, beside you in these meetings. And so we wanted to get you a little something. We got you a plaque that has a little gavel on it, so in case you ever miss it, you can just take it out and you can walk around the house with it. It doesn't work quite as well as it does here, but
If I may just say a couple words.
please.
Interesting ride these 2 years for sure. I couldn't have picked a more interesting time to be board president or chosen by my colleagues to serve 2 years. And I am thoroughly appreciative to the board, my colleagues here, Scott Huber, who's been a wonderful vice president over these last 2 years, Julie Hirota, a fantastic clerk, and both of them have supported me in so many ways over the past 2 years, and getting kids back into school and keeping us open and working with our teachers union and our staff. And you two have been great for the long haul. Pete, you've been fantastic this year coming on, and you've been a huge support to me this past year. Your look into, into governance and how we run things. And so I really appreciate you, and Heidi, your eternal optimism and support. All four of you have been great, but I really have enjoyed working with the three superintendents. One a short term, but I have to mention Jess Borhan, and of course now John Becker, and this staff has been just great. Joe Landon, Brad Basham, you've been here this past 2 years, and April Moore joining us. I really am thankful to all of, and we've added Rob Hasty and Jennifer Layton, and of course Craig Garabedian. So I just appreciate the dialogue we've had, and it's been really great. But I have to really thank my wife, who's actually at a board meeting here, Deidre. Why don't you stand up and wave, Deidre, my beautiful wife, who puts up with all this. And this job is not easy, and it takes a lot of time away from other things. And so I love you, honey, and thanks for being so supportive. And my friend Bruce Howdeshout, who has been, I met, like you said, 2018, I think he was running and came into my work office, and I appreciate him and his wife Shelley as well. So I know we have a long meeting, but I just wanted to say that, and I'll look forward to turning it over to others, but being a supportive board member in any way I can. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, I need to thank Barbara Huber is probably one of our unsung heroes, and she's sitting on. She is such a help as the superintendent administrative assistant. She's fantastic. You've been great, Barbara. You've helped in a lot of ways, getting me things, doing things for me, doing things for all of us. So, Barbara, you're fantastic, and I appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Pete.
I just wanted to add my thanks to Andrew and my apologies to your wife, because I know I've kept you on the phone way too many hours at home, and mostly happy, but sometimes yelling at each other. And you've done a great job. I know you not only had one tough year, but you had two back-to-back tough years. And, I'm not sure if everyone here knows, but usually the presidency changes every year. But last year we asked Andrew to stay one more year so we would have some continuity through all this craziness that we were going through. And I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for all the mentorship in this first year. And I want to make a clarification on what that plaque is really for. That gavel is for your wife to rule you out of order at home anytime she wants. So be sure you use that for them. Thank you.
I'll just second the things that have already been said, but Andrew, of course, was my first board president, my only board president, and he's the most patient, calm, even keeled, no matter how many questions I have or whatever concerns. He's just so kind and so invested. So, and I will also, thank his wife, because I do appreciate how much time that it takes. I had no idea prior to being a board member how much time it takes. And he has way more time spent even than the rest of us, because he does respond to every single email. So thank you for being an amazing president. And I would like to second the Barbara Huber add-on. She is a saint. So anything we need, we're racing through the airport, needing a boarding pass. She's doing it from Roseville while we're in San Diego. I mean, just like she needs a cape, superwoman cape.
Andrew, thank you. I appreciate your leadership through all of this. You've been neutral, you've been calm, and you've listened to me yell at you so many times over the last 2 years. So thank you for still taking my calls and being a really good example for our district, just a peaceful leader. And I appreciate that. That's exactly what we need, right? We need it right now. We need it at the right time. We need it for all of our superintendents that you interfaced with, because it's been hard for all of us, all of them. And you've been just that great neutralizing person. And you've handled yourself so well. And Scott, he's set the bar pretty high. So take note. Thank you, Andrew.
A lot since we came in at the same time, I'll tell you. It's been a whirlwind. Even pre-COVID, but not as many people were paying attention back then.
Thank you. And again, I know several of you mentioned about Andrew's wife, but Deirdre, really thank you as well for letting us have him for this time. Okay, item 5.3, communications. Okay, 5.4, student board representative report. Go for it. And by the way, before you do, let me apologize. It is customary that we ask the student board representative for his vote before we vote on items. And, I still have the training wheels on. I forgot to ask him for his vote for the items before, and so my apologies. I won't forget again.
So, my name is Jacob Brook. I go to high school, and some things going on at my school are performing arts are performing, I think tomorrow and next week. So we got a lot of performing going on, and then we have a lot of boys basketball and boys soccer and girls soccer going on right now, and they're doing pretty good right now. And we have our our finals coming up next week, and right now in Student Gov, we're pretty much preparing for next semester's rally and mostly just for the winter ball, and preparing for that whole Spirit Week and stuff. And that's pretty much it.
Nice. Thank you very much. Okay, item 5.5, public comment. We do have a couple of speaker cards. In no particular order, Michelle Peterson will go first, and then Karen Combest is on deck.
Good evening, Michelle Peterson. I have a daughter at Appoint High School. Congratulations, Scott, and thank you, Andrew, and the whole entire board and superintendent. Oh boy, it's been a month since we were here, and I'm sure you know what I want to talk about. Mask choice. I'd really, really, really appreciate a statement, because as the last week was, without that statement, you now have teachers that are harassing kids in class. It's more than a gentle reminder. It is an ongoing thing. Names being called out, being told schools are going to get shut down. I would like to thank you guys for your updates though, because the 12-1, and maybe that's what started it, was the quarantines and the close contacts and not having quarantines and all of that new verbiage that came out. as well as the CDPH and their new guidelines for sports, that you can be out in a basketball arena sweating all over each other without a mask. And it still just finds me kind of odd that you can't sit in a classroom 3 feet from somebody without a teacher continually telling you to pull your mask up. So it's taken a stand of having to call in, and without this statement of what our teachers can and cannot do, I have to call and talk to the principal, which then gets a conversation and it still continues on. So I would ask you that if you don't take a stand and make a statement and put it out there that it's a choice, you're letting us think that there will never be an off-ramp for masks coming off of our kids and letting our teachers go back to teaching like they should be. So, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Karen Combest, and I have a daughter at Oakmont High School. And I usually share her feedback with you, and I'll do that today as well. Her feedback is really to the administration, and she wants to know what happened to Dead Week. You know, the week before finals, when you don't really have a million tests and you kind of study for the test. That's not happening for her in her junior year, so she wanted me to pass that along to you. I would like to thank you for a few things. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the message you sent on 12/1 clarifying that there are no quarantines, there's no testing, even for non-symptomatic students who have maybe been sick a couple of days before. No testing to re-enter the school, no testing, no isolating them or making them feel bad, and no telling them they have to quarantine. So thank you so much for clarifying that, and I hope every parent in the district reads that email. It came out on 12/1. It's also on the district website. I'd also like to thank Mr. Hasty, who is not here right now, for sending the message about the way that Roseville Joint is addressing what's supposed to be, you know, a TikTok video program that's out there for tomorrow. So way to lead the district by being proactive and communicating that. That was really nice to see as a parent. I feel so much better about sending my daughter to school who has 2 tests and a paper due, 2 days before finals. Anyway, I would also like to thank you for your decision in the closed session, but I really want to see the policy or the statement before I truly thank you. Because as parents, we have been educating ourselves as to the rules and the laws, and we are sharing that with other parents, and we are encouraging students to stand up for themselves and to know their rights as a student, that they can't be excluded from classroom, they can't be forced into independent study, and that there is no mask law and they cannot be arrested. Any teacher that harasses, bullies, discriminates, not only is that against the law, but it's also against board policies, and parents have mechanisms and recourses to make sure that they can take action against that. So I certainly hope that all of that is included in that policy. And as we've learned in all of this year and a half, almost 2 years of COVID response, doing the minimal amount that the CDPH requires us has always led us in the right direction, a bold, strong leadership direction. I would just ask that you continue that, and that you continue with your duty and obligation to stand up for these kids, because nobody else is. So please do that for them. And with everything going on in the world, the mental health, the threats of violence, these kids need a break, and they need to be able to breathe freely and interact with others for social development, intellectual development. And I just ask that you continue to think about them first and foremost, even if it makes you uncomfortable. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And, what we're all about is about kids. And so since you brought it up, Karen, I'm going to mention, I hope your daughter, I wish her good luck on her 2 tests and her paper tomorrow. You mean she's not listening? Committee reports, 5.6. Pete.
Well, as you'll see in the consent calendar, the policy committee has been busy, not as busy as staff has been getting all these policies together for us. They're long items, but they're actually fairly simple. So I just wanted to say on, when you get to the first one, there's a duplication cleanup of board policies. Our state, in its wonderful efforts to reduce regulations, has a requirement that we have the same board policy written 3 or 4 times, just addressing different classes of employees. So what you're going to see is a duplication of the policies that have already been approved, but getting them into the right places for non-certificated employees in the categories that they need to be. So while it looks like a lot, it's really just cleaning up and making sure we have the approved policies in all the proper places so that they apply to all of our employees throughout our organization. The second item, you're going to have quite a bunch of policies, and as you may remember, the board supported the policy committee's recommendation to complete a policy audit with assistance from external policy work. We got the results of that back. There's a lot of work to be done. This is the first of a lot of very thick policy recommendations that are going to be coming forward over the next year. We've identified where outdated policies are, where gaps in policies are, where duplications in policy are, and we will be metering those forward as we come from meeting to meeting. And this is the first one. We've taken all the requests that we've gotten from our colleagues up here, and staff has ensured that anything that is mandated is indicated as being mandated. Those that are, you'll see the markups follow what the precedent that we've started, so they're hopefully easier as they're coming through. But as always, if you have any of them that you want to discuss in depth, we'll be more than willing to talk about them if they get pulled from the consent calendar. But this is really just a warning that this is probably the smallest of the batches you're going to be seeing as we go forward. There's a lot of policies to be cleaned up. No, as I said, over the next year. So.
I just want to, I know we're not making nominations for committees, but I'll nominate Pete to stay on the Board Policy and Review Committee tonight. I think he's done an excellent job this past year. Appreciate his work on that.
Any other committees that met? All right, seeing none, let's move on to the consent agenda.
I forgot, the Facilities and Finance Committee met as well, but we're going to discuss that when we discuss the audit.
Perfect. Consent agenda, is there a motion?
Wanted to pull item 6.12 for discussion and vote.
6.12 will be pulled. Is there a motion?
We removed 6.5, leave of absences. We found a mistake, so can we consider a consent agenda without 6.5? I'll bring it back in January.
Okay.
Thank you.
So 6.5 is removed, 6.12 we'll pull and we'll talk about separately. Is there motion to approve the balance? Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded, and roll call vote. Barbara?
Johnston,
Yes.
Heidi Hall, Julie Hirota,
Yes.
Scott Huber,
Yes.
Andrew Tay.
Yes.
And our student, please, Jacob.
Okay, and Julie, 6.12. Let's do, yeah, I like doing them, that way I don't have to worry about going back. I have a short attention span.
I would like to ask Assistant Superintendent Dr. Moore to just, I had asked her to give a little bit further explanation on it to me when we did a one-on-one, and I wanted to have that shared with everybody.
So you didn't want to keep that to yourself?
I don't want to keep it to myself. I just wanted a little bit more explanation on, let me pull it up.
Dr. Moore?
Yes, thank you, Vice President Rhoda, President Huber. Last meeting, we showed the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant draft, and we heard some public comment and questions related to the categories, how we were categorizing the work. There did not seem to be any concern with the actual work that we had planned, but just more of the clarity. So we were able to make those adjustments and spell out a little bit more information to address the concerns that were raised. And so the version that you have before you this evening spells it out with a little more clarity, and I believe addresses the concerns that were raised at that meeting. So that is the intent of this. And we do need to approve it tonight. Otherwise, we don't get the money. But we can always make some adjustments as well as we go along. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Board members, any other questions? If not, is there a motion? Got a motion? Is there a second? All right, motion and a second. All in favor to approve item 6.12, say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Okay, this is going to be a little odd. We do this every year, so we're going to adjourn our regular meeting we're going to pause our regular meeting. We're going to adjourn to the Finance Corporation Board of Directors annual meeting. We'll call that meeting to order, and the record can reflect that all board members are present. Debt issuance overview, Joe.
Yes, for the annual Financing Corporation meeting, the review is that we have a financing corporation for the sale of certificates of participation. We entered into an agreement a few years ago to help with the financing of West Park Phase 2 while we awaited state reimbursement funds as well as developer fee collection. And so we've have $55 million in certificates of participation. The all-in interest cost is approximately 2.63%, so it was at a really great interest rate. That's the summary of our certificates of participation. Now going forward, the board would need to appoint officers of the Financing Corporation as well as the minutes and what's listed in the agenda.
And typically the officers are the same officers as the board. So is there a motion to that effect? All right, there's a motion by trustee Constant,
Second.
second by trustee Tag. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Okay, and item 4 on 7.1, approval of minutes of the meeting of December 14. Is there a motion? Is there a motion? Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Okay, item 5 is public comments. This is a time reserved for any comments by the public that are not on the agenda. Having seen a slip come in for our regular meeting that came in after the deadline, I'll go ahead and take it now for this financing meeting. Steve Krusik, please. Otherwise, you'd be out. So go ahead.
Okay, Steve Krusik, Wood Creek High School. Sorry for my tardiness. Hello, board. I'm sorry to inform you that currently there are 388,000 COVID vaccine deaths in the United States. Both sides of this synthetic pandemic will argue their numbers and percentages of COVID-related deaths and hospitalizations between vaxxed and unvaxxed people. Knowing this, the common denominator is that unlike the CTA and Rsea, COVID clearly does not discriminate between vaxxed and unvaxxed people. Based on this information, I formed a logical conclusion that the positive COVID cases in this district are skewed, as unvaccinated staff are the only people being tested. I will now reference this as dirty data. As such, I'm formally requesting the district to either test none or test all district staff members via board member vote. The vaccinated will never be fully vaccinated. There will always be another variant, another shot, another booster. This cyclical, money-driven experimental drug has no end in sight. Board and Mr. Becker, last night Rockland's Unified Board voted 4-1, opposing the vaccine and mask mandate. As such, I would ask that you make your decision known to the public as well with regards to enforcing or opposing Governor Newsom's vaccine mask mandate. This would notify all stakeholders how to prepare for the second term begins January 2022. Thank you, and I wish you a mandate-free Merry Christmas and a freedom-filled Happy New Year while it's still legal. End of message.
Okay, we will establish the next meeting date for the Finance Corporation meeting, which is tentatively set for December 15th of 2022. And we'll go ahead and adjourn the Finance Corporation meeting, and we'll reconvene to our regular meeting. Item 9.1, RSEA Report.
Good evening. So we want to acknowledge and thank you, Andrew, for your leadership as president of the board. You've done an admirable job leading during a challenging time this past year, and we've appreciated your willingness to listen, learn, and navigate. Also, welcome and congratulations to Scott now as president, Julie as vice president, Pete as clerk, so it's nice to have you guys there. RSA looks forward to continuing working with all of you in these new roles. RSEA wanted to let it be known that we do not support the New Pacific Charter at this time, just as we opposed the John Adams Charter at the time it came up before us. We stand by the argument that PCOE is set up for this exact purpose and should have oversight of this charter. RSEA did share with you our concerns in the letter that was sent to you. I was also just reading an article on NPR yesterday regarding a study they did on public schools, declining population, and found it enlightening regarding the impact the charter schools have on public schools. And then another thing that we were concerned about is there's an increase in problems with Aries not functioning properly lately across the whole district. This is something kind of new this year. Normally we've had days here and there throughout the year where it's an issue, but suddenly this year it's become much more frequent, especially as we've been going through this semester, and now it's become nearly weekly, it seems. Tech really is responsive to getting on it, but it's frustrating at the frequency and unpredictability of it going down or being spotty, and it's impacting our ability to help do our jobs on attendance and grades. We also know that some have become more dependent on the use of technology, and as it comes with an increase in glitches and breaking, we've noticed that students are having longer times for Chromebook repairs, and we're running out of loaners, especially at Roseville. And some of the kids may not be able to do work in class the day of it's due because of dependency on technology. We would like for this to be looked more into in order to make sure we have the resources to meet the needs of our students, because we're struggling with that. We would like to remind you that we do need to keep following CDPH and Placer County Department of Health guidelines. They have not been changed. And now with the new mandate of the state's universal masking policy for all indoor places that went into effect yesterday for a month, it just reinforces and adds another level of expectations on us, the teachers. Not following them does threaten our very own credentials and careers, along with the ability to stay open. But with all that now, we are looking forward to a long and restful break while getting ready for the second half of the school year. I'm surprised at how fast and yet how slow this first half appears to have gone by, and know that next semester will be faster. And we wish everybody happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year, and we'll see you in 2022. Thank you.
Okay. Trustee voting areas, draft maps, status update, 9.2. Joe.
Yes, thank you. If you look in the briefing, I've done a summary of what's transpired with our mapping process over the last month or two. And we just recently received from our demographer our mapping tools that any members of the public, board members, anyone in the community can complete that process. In order for the demographer to take those maps into account, he's requesting to have all maps submitted by January 4th of 2022. Then he's going to go through all the maps and produce a few maps to draft maps to go on the website and to come to the board on January 13th as part of the first public hearing and get direction from the board, what you like, don't like, any adjustments you would propose. And then there will be a second public hearing on February 10th that the board could approve the final maps. There's also the ability to have a special board meeting if necessary. We are planning we have a couple corrections on some of these, mostly formatting areas that I talked with Trustee Constant about, and we've hopefully the demographer can get those fixed, and then we will post on the district website and send out communication to all the parents and families who want to create a map. I've been able to go through and just try it out and been able to create a map or two, so it is able to work using the Excel spreadsheet and using those parameters. So at this time, I wanted to provide this information to the board and answer any questions about the process going forward.
Board members, any questions? Yep, Pete?
Mostly comments, if you're okay with comments.
Absolutely, sure. Questions or comments?
So first I want to express my displeasure with the demographer. We are several days late, weeks late, months late, getting this information out. And essentially we are giving the public 3 weeks to create maps in the middle of the holiday season. Many people are going away and have much better things to do than to use what I think is very inappropriately called tools, because these are not tools. I've used a lot of mapping tools, doing mapping for several jurisdictions. I think it is terrible that we don't have real tools for people to use to draw the maps. As Joe mentioned, there are a number of mistakes in the tools that shouldn't have had mistakes in them. This is not the first time an organization has done mapping, nor is it the first time that our vendor has been asked to provide mapping tools. In addition to the rudimentary tools, it seems as if the demographer has chosen to combine census areas to create large population blocks, which severely limit the ability to draw maps and balance population. If you compare the census block grouping that was used at the city, currently being used at the city, at the county, or the county of Sacramento, or the city of Sacramento, compared to what we have, you will see it's very difficult. When you have to decide how you're going to create boundaries, and you can only do it with groups of 5,000 to 6,000 people at a time, when there's no need to go to that level of grouping. I just think we have been given a very poor start, a very late start, and we're giving our public pretty much no time to participate in the mapping process. I've been active in every city and county around us that are doing their maps, and we have the worst process of them. So I just wanted to say that because it's been very frustrating. Now, that being said, I want to thank Joe, because Joe and I have spent some time on the phone. I had the opportunity to spend about 4 hours working on the mapping software, and hopefully we will get some changes or some corrections to the tools, because this is important. This is going to affect us for 10 years. It's going to affect every person who's here, every resident of Roseville, Granite Bay, Antelope, all the unincorporated areas in between, all of our feeder districts. And even though we've known about this forever, and we've talked about planning this, and quite frankly, we pleaded to get it going, our demographer has hamstrung us at the end. So, but thank you, Joe, because I'm glad I get to talk to you and not the demographer. So thank you.
Please, Andrew.
I just started looking at these maps a little bit, and I may need a tutorial from you, Pete, on even how to use it. It's a little disappointing that this is what the demographer came up with in the end results, because I've seen some other mapping services that look, and the one we wanted to pay for obviously would have been much more user-friendly, easier to use, and it is disappointing that this was the end result that he came up with. But again, thank you for pressing on, and we're going to get this done, and that's all we're at a place where we have to move forward. But it's kind of, I don't even know where to start here. So Pete, I might have to see you about this for a little lesson. Sure.
Any other board members, any other comments, questions? Okay, this is a presentation, so we'll go ahead and move on to the next item, 9.3 A to G Completion Improvement Grant. Dr. Moore.
Yes, thank you, President Huber. This is an information item, simply a draft that we wanted to share with how we plan to use this grant funding that is specifically earmarked for supporting, maintaining our A through G completion, and it has specific provisions to provide additional access to classes that students may have failed, received a D or an F during the COVID-3 terms since spring of 2020. So this is a draft because we don't have the confirmation of the actual dollar figure that we'll get. It is an estimate, but it's also because you approved on consent an item that is going along with these funds, and we thought it would be helpful to see the bigger plan. So our contract with Riverside County Office of Education is also in partnership with the Placer County Office of Education to do some audits of A through G so we can monitor our student progress, see what adjustments we need to make, and then we have funds to actually address that in the grant. So we anticipate bringing this back in February, no later than March, for formal approval. And simply a draft. We'd be happy to receive any comments along the way if people have questions. They can direct those to my attention.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions or comments on this item? Okay, and let me just ask, we have item 9.4 is New Pacific School, and then 10.1 is public hearing New Pacific School. Are those both the same item? I mean, one's just the public hearing for the,
Right, they're going to give a presentation at the first, and it's
Okay.
usually helpful to have the presentation
Yep.
prior to the public hearing.
perfect. Let's do this. Before we do that, let's take a 5-minute break, if that's okay, because that may be a long presentation. Let's take a 5-minute break or so. Bye. All right, we will reconvene from our break at exactly 5 minutes, I believe. Sorry about that. Okay, New Pacific School. We've got a presentation from New Pacific School.
Good evening. Sorry. Superintendent Becker, Board President Huber, and members. Tonight I'm presenting New Pacific School Charter Petition. Tonight we're going to introduce New Pacific School, talk about the need for the school, how we meet the need, share what makes the program unique, and how we're connecting with the community. My name is Dr. Paul Kiefer, and I'm the founding director of Pacific Charter Institute. We founded PCI in 2004 and began serving students in 2005. Prior to entering the field of education, I worked for 7 years at United Parcel Service in operations, business development, and project management. After earning my Bachelor's of Science degree from UC Davis, I went on to earn my MBA, my teaching credential, my administrative credential, and my doctorate. I am active in the community, including recently elected as board member for the Rotary Club of Sacramento. I'm a member of the Greater Arden, Carmichael, and most recently the Roseville Chamber of Commerce. I volunteer as the district chairperson for the Three Rivers District of the Golden Empire Council for the Boy Scouts of America. I also support scouting as an assistant scoutmaster with Troop 380, focusing on high adventure and merit badges. I attend St. John the Evangelist Church in Carmichael, and I teach the confirmation class and participate in the homeless initiative called Carmichael Heart. Since 2018, I've served on the Sacramento County Board of Education as trustee for Area 3, which covers portions of Carmichael, North Highlands, Antelope, Arden, Arcade, College Greens, and Sacramento. My wife Elizabeth and I have a daughter at El Camino Fundamental High School in San Juan, 2 sons at the University of San Diego. My sons, my father, and I are 3 generations of Eagle Scouts. My wife worked here at Wood Creek for 10 years, from 1996 to 2006, and my mother-in-law lives across the preserve in Roseville, so she is close. I sense her. About Pacific Charter Institute. Pacific Charter Institute is a 501c3 nonprofit corporation serving over 3,000 students in Northern California. The 4 schools under PCI are authorized by 4 different school districts. We support 6 resource centers located in Lodi, Oak Park in Sacramento, Rio Linda, West Sacramento, Elk Grove, and Vacaville, which collectively serve about 800 students. We have over 200 employees and currently serve students through independent study and homeschool. We take student, staff, and family satisfaction seriously, so we survey them regularly. One survey questioned by our wellness team last year found that 90% of our students felt their teachers cared about them. Over the last 15 years, we successfully launched a number of programs, including Project Lead the Way, which I know, I think Antelope has it, because I remember running into the Antelope staff about 15 years ago. Medical assisting, EKG tech, dual or concurrent enrollment in 14 counties, and we have maintained an exceptional and deep community partnerships. Over the last 15 years, we have maintained an exceptional business operation and currently have a reserve of over $9 million. Over the last 15 years, we have stayed ahead of the curve for information technology, ensuring our students and staff have state-of-the-art tools. Over the last 15 years, we graduate students who have continued amazing pursuits. Serving a range of families from homeschool independent study, 90% of PCI reports that teachers care about them and their learning. We are good at PLTW, early college, and personalized learning. So why New Pacific School? We face troubling trends in the mental health of young people that have been exacerbated by the pandemic, as the data shows on the screen. We believe establishing a new kind of school that puts connectedness, self-determination at the center in order to develop students who are smart, happy, and resilient. And we have a theory of action. Our theory is that we know that youth mental health and wellness is a problem. We're seeing the impact of pandemic isolation, which includes increased depression and anxiety, impulsivity and irritability, and the most extreme, eating disorders and even suicide. This crisis impacts learning. It reveals itself in public schools as lag indicators, including low student achievement, suspension and expulsion, and chronic absenteeism. We haven't seen the floor of how bad it is for the students today. The solution is a new approach to school, a research-backed school design that's student-centered, rigorous, and engaging education, resulting in increased student connectedness and success. Connectedness is the solution. New Pacific School will serve grades TK-12, but open with TK-5 with 90 students in the first year. It is tuition-free, open to all students, with no academic or behavioral admission qualifications. Our mission is to be a learning community that fosters a sense of connection and belonging to empower the scholar leaders of tomorrow. And our vision is for graduates of New Pacific School will be lifelong, purpose-driven learners who author their own future and thrive in a rapidly changing world. New Pacific School is a new, different kind of school built from experience, but unlike any other existing PCI program. New Pacific School offers hands-on learning that's project-based, including Project Lead the Way, Carolina Science, and Jump Math. New Pacific School will offer a rich curriculum that keeps students engaged and motivated from TK to 12th grade. New Pacific School will be student-driven, student-centered approach where teachers serve as a guide on the side and students learn and exhibit leadership that will prepare them for college, career, and beyond. It is a culture of connectedness, and students, families, and teachers, school staff all work together to create a safe and accountable environment. And with that, I would like to introduce our fantastic Suzanne Marzak, who will describe the program in more detail.
Good evening, Superintendent Becker, President Huber, and members of the board. My name is Suzanne Marzak, and I'm the founding principal for New Pacific School. It was over 20 years ago that I began my career in education at the school that Superintendent Becker was an assistant principal of and then a principal. We were serving students that were 75% English language learners, 90% socioeconomic disadvantaged. These students had a lot of needs, and we worked really hard to see them achieve. A couple of years later, I became an administrator myself, and then at Thomas Unified, and then the Dry Creek School Districts, and then became the director of an international school overseas. After that, I came home and stayed home for a couple of years and grew our family, and I'm a mom of 4 daughters. 4 daughters. I have my master's degree in educational business administration with an emphasis in educational entrepreneurship, and I'm excited to share with you about New Pacific School tonight. Oh, there's me, sorry. New Pacific staff believes learning best occurs in a community that is committed and an environment designed to support the following approaches. At the foundation is school culture and connectedness. At the center of this is Franklin Covey's Leader in Me, which is a school-wide practical framework where students learn how to self-regulate and self-direct their educational experience. Students are provided opportunities to lead, set, track, and celebrate personal and academic goals, as well as class and school goals. In the academic triangle, which is the relationship between families, students, and teachers, everyone knows exactly where the student is, and each has an important role in the student's academic success. Using the Los Angeles Institute of Restorative Practices, or Right Brain Institute, procedures and systems are implemented at all levels to ensure that student behavior is supported through a neurobiological and trauma-informed lens. And lastly, a small school environment encourages relationships, interaction, and interpersonal accountability. This is how we approach teaching and learning. With a focus on students who may not have been as successful in a traditional classroom setting, we will design individualized learning plans with each student at their level, including low achievers, high achievers, English language learners, and students with disability. This academic triangle works together in the self-directed learning cycle to reflect on learning, set goals for new learning, plan for how the goals will be met, learn new facts, skills, or ideas, demonstrate the learning, and then the cycle begins again with the reflection. Instruction is standards-based and aligned with Common Core, NGSS, HSS, CTE, and SEL. But instead of segmented subjects, students tackle projects across different curricula, applying reasoning from math, language arts, and others to demonstrate their learning. There is also a focus on world language instruction from day one, using Rosetta Stone for every student. Project-based learning is our model because it's hands-on, it's rigorous, it's personal, inquiry-based, and differentiated for all students. Project-based learning provides meaning and purpose for students, building on their strengths, and ultimately is student-driven. Students will learn to use their own data to develop learning goals. Additionally, teachers will meet in professional learning communities to analyze that student data and make informed data-driven decisions to design directed learning experiences. This instruction will all be one-on-one or in small groups. Learners will have access to dedicated computing devices, hotspot internet upon request, and technology support. Finally, learning will be mastery-based using formative assessments and intervention tools. Students will have a personally designed learning path specific to each learner, so students can master skills and address individual learning gaps. New Pacific School will strive to provide an integration of community learning through authentic learning experiences. Using field trips, projects from real-world contexts, and interactions with experts, classrooms are transformed into away missions, drawing from the community resources. Life after K-12 is a focus at all grade levels. Learners are embedded in a college, career-based culture as a way to bring meaning to learning and develop a mindset of being a lifelong learner. And dynamic partnerships are a goal. While K-8 learners engage community partners for in-class learning, secondary students will seek internships from local organizations and advance education experience through area community college, including formal dual enrollment agreements. This is an innovative school. It is different from what many teachers are used to. So to support our teachers, we will provide time for collaboration and professional development on how to be a guide on the side. There will be a paraprofessional in every classroom, which will provide additional support for teachers and students. We know that it's hard to be a teacher right now, so we will also offer mental health and wellness support. All of these components help us to focus on the whole child. Our program brings together the best elements of personalized, self-directed, hands-on learning. And because we are meeting each student where they are and can move them forward, we are confident that we can meet the needs of any student that walks through our doors. Now I'd like to share with you about our outreach efforts. We kicked off our community outreach efforts in July with the Roseville 4th of July parade. We've distributed flyers around the community and had table events at Walmart and Denio's in July and August. In September, we had a booth at the Roseville Family Fest where over 100 children experienced hands-on chemistry projects. And this is me dressed up as a witch doing chemical reaction cauldrons, which were super fun. We also focused on neighborhoods with a higher percentage of chronic absenteeism and lower student achievement using pre-pandemic data. We want to make sure New Pacific is accessible, so we provided outreach materials in English and Spanish, as well as translators for informational meetings in Spanish and Russian. We've had tremendous reception from Roseville families. We've obtained more than the number of family signatures required by law, 46 families totaling 94 students. So how will we ensure that New Pacific is a success? We have the experience and dedicated staff to deliver this program. We bring what few other new school developers can offer, the PCI infrastructure to support with student services, with enrollment, counseling, and special education, operations with records and facilities, and budget and fiscal services. We are ready to serve students, all students, on day one. We are committed to working collaboratively. No other school in the area offers all of the features in a small school setting that's tuition-free and open to all. We value the work that RJUHSD has done in all of the Roseville schools, and we are open to dialogue about how to bring this school into the portfolio of options for families in Roseville. I want to thank the PCI team and families for coming out tonight, and thank you Superintendent Becker and the board for your time and consideration.
Okay, so does that conclude your presentation? Wonderful. Okay, well, let's go to then item 10.1 for a public hearing. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing at 7:52 p.m. Colleagues, any questions that you have of,
One very brief question.
Yeah.
In our packet on 9/4, there was a New Pacific School response to the district inquiry, but I didn't see the actual district inquiry. So can we get that document before the next meeting, so that we can put the two together? Thank you.
any other questions?
Quick questions for Dr. Kiefer. And we did have a chance to chat, so that was very helpful in our conversation, just to understand. And as you said, right now you're looking at about 92 students to open the school with.
Yes.
And of those 92 students, how many are high school students?
So the first year, they're going to be TK5
Just TK5, okay.
in the first year. And then year 3 is when we'll have high school students.
You'll have high school.
Yes.
And what's your projection? Do you have a projection on how quickly you can grow, or how many students you can get to over, say, the next 5 years?
Yeah, so our projection is to have 100 high school students, 75 middle school students, and 90 elementary TK5 students. So
Okay.
roughly a little over 200 students.
In this charter school, you mentioned will be all-day site-based.
That is correct.
So it won't be a hybrid model, it'll be all in person.
It'll be all in person, of course, pending COVID.
Yeah,
But
pending
for sure, it'll be a daily ADA, not independent study, not homeschool.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, at this point, we'll go ahead and open up to comments from the public. First is Sarahi Banda, and then following Sarahi Banda will be Joy Ball. You got 3 minutes. Sure.
Hola, mucho gusto. Mi nombre es Saraí. Nice to meet you. My name is Saraí. Tengo dos niñas. I have two daughters.
Let me stop you here. You got 6 minutes, please. They get an extra 3 minutes for interview. Change to 6, would you please? Okay, go ahead and start over. Por
Okay.
favor.
Hola, mucho gusto. Mi nombre es Saraí. Nice to meet you. My name is Saraí. Tengo dos niñas. I have two daughters. Estoy emocionada por la posibilidad de una nueva escuela. I am very excited about having the possibility of a new school. Donde nos ofrecen una metodología de educación diferente. Where a new methodology is being offered. A la tradicional. Different from traditional education. Me gusta la idea de que se preocupan por la parte socioemocional. I like the idea that they are concerned about social learning. De los niños. Ya que para mí es un tema de gran importancia. This is very important for me. Para el desarrollo de mis hijas. For my daughter's development. Pues es la base de toda educación. I see that as a base of all education. Para que los niños sepan manejar sus emociones adecuadamente. In order for children to be able to handle their emotions appropriately. Por lo tanto, debemos ser un equipo en casa con la escuela. Therefore, we must partner with the school para mejorar resultados en nuestros hijos. To improve our children's results. Y de esta forma, ellos tengan un buen desarrollo psicoafectivo. And so that our children can have a good social emotional development. Por favor, sí, para Escuela New Pacific. Please vote yes for New Pacific. Gracias.
Sarahi, muchísimas gracias. Okay, next is Joy Ball.
Good evening. My name is Joy Ball, and first I just want to thank you all for sticking with it the last couple years. I'm sure you've had many emails that have not been pleasant, so thank you for everything that you're doing. And so I have lived in Roseville for nearly 15 years. My husband and I have twin 10-year-old boys, and we chose the city because all it has to offer, from great jobs, quality schools, access to hiking, biking, snow, water sports, everything. I've been a teacher for 17 years also, mostly in the charter school system. I love that charters answer the needs of the community, and we have a need in the community. Our community is looking for a safe place to learn. As a teacher, I know that children need to feel safe and welcome first before any learning can happen. With New Pacific focusing on social emotional learning, I know that students who don't fit the mold of traditional public school will find themselves flourishing at New Pacific. New Pacific also will focus on project-based learning, and research shows that this is the optimal way to learn. When I taught 4th grade, I did not allow parents to help with projects at all. They were completely done in the classroom. This took away any economic gap, any social gap, and let me tell you how bright and creative these kids were when their parents did not get in the way. I tasked my students to form groups and create their own missions out of cereal boxes and cardboard and popsicle sticks and paint. And they created entire self-sufficient communities. And do you know what every mission had? A place to find jobs. This was during the 2008-2009 crash. Every single student felt the pinch that their parents were experiencing. And they worked together as 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds to help solve big world problems. And that is project-based learning. They still remind me of it. And it's what teachers live for. And this is why New Pacific will be a beautiful benefit to our already amazing community. Please vote yes for New Pacific School. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to address the board on this charter petition before we close the public hearing? Please.
My name is Kevin Dredge, and I am new to this presentation that was given. And as a public member, I have got to say that that is one of the most fantastic programs that we can initiate. So I just wanted to give mine and our liking a thumbs up. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. This matter is going to be coming back for action by the board on our meeting on January 2022 meeting will be the the second Thursday of January. January 13th of 2022. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on. We've got action matters 11.1 audit report for fiscal year 2020 through 2021.
Yes, thank you. The purpose of this item is to approve the 2020-21 audit report. The details are listed in the briefing. This audit report was also reviewed with the Finance Facilities Committee with our auditors present. And staff recommends the approval of the audit, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Board members, any questions? Comment, please.
Thanks. I know
Pete, you're on finance, yes?
I am on finance committee. And unlike most people, I enjoy audits as long as I'm not the one personally being audited. I just think this is one of the most important documents that we get. And I know we're going to be talking about the interim report. Those are important documents too. But I think these audit reports really give us a much higher elevation look at the health and the fiscal integrity of the district as a whole. And I think it's just important that there are a few things that I like to talk about every time I see an audit. So if the board will indulge me, I just want to make some comments. I'll try and refer to some pages, but they're mostly editorial comments. But on page 8, I think it's important that we look at how much we tax our residents to do what we do. It's the eight, yes. Now the big numbers will be the dollar amounts, not the page numbers. So, you know, we levy in 2021 almost $93 million in taxes to do what we do to educate students. Going on page 13, think it's important that we always take a look at our long-term liabilities, and it's important to see that our long-term liabilities are pretty steep. You know, 413, almost $414 million in long-term liabilities. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. It's just something that we always need to be considering. And as we look at that, you know, significant amount of our long-term liabilities, they're all detailed on page 18, almost just center and above center on the page. That $414 million comprises of a bunch of items, bonds, interest, and certificates of participation, and leases, and pension liabilities. And it's important to know not only what we have in our current debt, but how much capacity we have that has already been approved. And one of the things we discussed at the Finance Committee is that there's still about 40 million in bond authority that has been not used yet that could potentially be added to that as we continue the projects that we have in our district. Those of you who know me know that pensions are a particularly interesting point for me. I want to direct your attention to page 28. We have a total unfunded pension liability of almost $131 million. That's a lot. But I think what's most important to look at is if you look back 6 years ago, that was only $69 million 6 years ago. And it has grown to almost 131 million. So our current pension liability is about 1.4 times our annual levied taxes. So it'd take a year and a half of collecting taxes and doing nothing, no operating at all, just to address those issues. Now, fortunately, we don't have to do that because these are all long-term liabilities that we are on an amortization schedule to pay those off. But it's important to realize the sensitivity of those numbers, and further in the report, it gets to the actual sensitivity. But one of the things we have to look at is what happens if the market underperforms by just 1%, which is not much, considering when we look back at the performance of CalPERS and CalSTRS over the last decade or so. But if we underperform by only 1% on our assumed rate of return, which happens quite often, unfortunately, that will increase, just that one factor alone can increase that pension liability to over $195 million. So there's a high level of leverage and sensitivity to these numbers. When we look at the total debt, as mentioned on the previous page, at 400, or previous comments at 413 or so million dollars, that's about 5 times annual tax levy, so it's a big number. One of the things that I have discussed in the past is the impact of these pension liabilities in the future. We don't know whether those liabilities are going to grow or shrink due to market conditions or other assumed rate of returns, but what we do know is the bills that we already have coming to service that debt. And we have amortization schedules that go out to 2031-ish, depending on which plan you're looking at, and actually beyond the 2047, but 2031 is about the peak of those liabilities. And we know we're going to have some very steep payments towards those that are already been sort of sunshine to us. We know they're coming. They've been billed to us. So on page 29, our audit talks about our fund balance policies. And the sports has a long established fund balance policy, which is a very good thing for an organization to have. But I think as we look at our future pension liability debt payments, which we have those amortization schedules, I won't bore you with pulling all those out, but they're huge. We have to figure out how we are going to manage those payments and still provide the excellent education we're providing to our kids. There are a lot of organizations that are hoping for state or federal bailouts, and I don't think that is a good strategy. At the same time, we have issues which we'll talk about in our interim report, where the state will continue to put pressure on us not to keep reserves to deal with these things going into the future. In fact, the state has already indicated that our ability to maintain reserves is going to be constrained, limited to a certain percentage, which I know Joe will talk about later. one of our opportunities is to look at how we can manage these liabilities, maintain our reserves to the full extent, meet our obligations for the future. When I talk about obligations, I mean just as much our obligation to educate kids as our obligation to pay for the benefits that we've promised to our employees and they've already earned and accrued. Those are all very important. So one of those areas we can do that is by revisiting the fund balance policy. It's how we can have our discussions around one-time funds that we get. We've received a lot of funds related to a lot of things, whether it be the ARPA funds or the state COVID funds. And we've got the increased shares coming due to surpluses. All of those things, I think, are things that we can look at. I know Joe and I have had a number of conversations about strategies that we can employ to be able to do that. And it's important because in addition to this debt, the debt numbers that I gave you are the debt that we have right now. In addition to that, we have $143 million in interest that's going to accrue between now and 2050. Now, I know 2050 seems like a long time away, but in perpetual agencies like us that have to educate generations and generations of kids, it's something that we really have to look at. So I just bring that up because as we go forward, I'm going to be continuing to hopefully work with Joe and others to think about how we can strategize a policy for us that makes sense without robbing what we're doing today, but not starving ourselves in the future. How do we balance our one-time money, our ending fund balances, our overbearing state telling us how we can manage our money, how we can do all that and come up with something that's going to give us some long-term stability. This just gives me a good reason to talk about it because we have all the numbers in front of us at one time. But that's something that I hope we will continue to look at and make some progress as we move forward. I don't know what that answer is, but I know it's important for us to think about and search because not only do our students deserve it, but every one of our employees has earned and accrued benefits and we haven't fully funded. And it's not just us. Nobody in CalSTRS or CalPERS has. Well, just a couple. But it's just important for us to do as we go forward. So I just wanted to surface that issue. I think this gave me the forum to surface it publicly. That's it.
So just picking your brain for a second, and I know picking both of your brains for a minute, it looks like the solution to that problem would not be one thing, but likely a series of things that we can do to tackle that problem. Am I wrong in that?
Yeah, I think there are policies that we can look at, like the fund balance policy, policies around what to do with one-time funds. One-time funds also often have restrictions on what they can be used for, but you can use those for those things, supplanting money that we would have been spending otherwise. So hopefully we'll be able to come with that. And then looking at a way where we can make sure that that money goes to our long-term liabilities and not leaving it in a place where the state can take it later because they decide that we can't do something, or somebody decides they want to build something somewhere in the future. Making sure that we address our future issues and have a real plan that we can all rely on. Parents, students, teachers, the unclassified staff, everybody together.
Any other comments? Anything else, Joe?
Just would like to add that I have scheduled some initial meetings with getting a section 115 pension trust set up. So that's
what I was that's what I was literally thinking was one piece.
Yeah, I think that's one piece, and I do anticipate more one-time money being available. So I don't think we're gonna solve the $130 million, but I think we can start making a dent in it and start positioning ourselves better. So I anticipate bringing some information to the board sometime early next year about some first steps we can take.
Excellent. Well, you don't get to retire until we solve this problem. Just so
Okay, I'll put it on hold then.
Is there a motion to approve?
Yes, and I just last comment is I think we have an ability to really be a leader in the field of educational districts on how we deal with this thing going forward.
Agreed.
With that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the audit report as presented.
For a second? Heidi, second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Okay, 11.2, Measure D Financial Audit and Performance Audit Fiscal Year 2020 to 21.
Yes, these audits were also reviewed with the Finance Committee recently. This is the conclusion of all of our Measure D funds. And so this is the last of our expenditures, which were in conformance with the guidelines in the bond that was passed. And we still do have state funds that will be coming in later, and those will be used to complete some of those remaining projects that we were looking to do with Measure D. So while the funds have still been spent, we still have state money that'll come later that we can still do some of those projects with. But staff recommends the board approve the Measure D audit reports.
Okay, board members, questions, comments? Is there a motion? All right, is there a motion? Is there a second? Motion is seconded. And I keep, Jacob, I'm so sorry, man. I keep forgetting to come and ask you about any comments, thoughts on the thrilling topic of an audit? Okay. What's your vote on this? Move to approve? Okay. So we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. 11.3, Measure D Citizens Oversight Committee Annual Report.
Yes, this is the final annual report for the Measure D Citizens Oversight Committee. We really want to publicly thank all of them for all their time. And it was really a great group to work with. They were very helpful and really appreciated the opportunity to be on the Oversight Committee. We were able to do a number of tours of the different facilities. They know that I'm always a phone call away, email away if they ever have questions in the community. So it was really a great experience for myself as well as I think the committee members. So they expressed their appreciation for the opportunity. And staff recommends that the board approve the annual report from the Oversight Committee.
All right, members, any questions? If not, is there a motion? Motion by Pete. Is there a second? All right, Hirota, second. Thoughts, comments? You're good with this one? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Okay, next is first interim report fiscal year 21-22. Joe.
Interject with questions or comments. My plan was to go through. Happy to answer any questions. So this is our first interim financial review. This is for 2021-22 school year through October 31st, 2021. So with that, one of the main areas we always look at is our enrollment. Our enrollment is where our funding comes from. That's based on the number of students we have, and that's it leads to how much staffing we need, how much budget we give to the site. So it's really critical. And as you can see, this year was a little bit different. We typically are a little bit closer on enrollment, and there has been some impacts related to COVID. What you'll notice is all of our sites, with the exception of West Park, were a bit under budget. So we had, when we started the year, expectations of about 10,587 at our comprehensive schools, and it came in at 10,230. So it was a shortage of 357 students. But what you will see is not a full placement of all the students, but you'll see a pretty big increase in an independent study. So those are students that were not comfortable with going back to the classroom, or were wanting to, or had enjoyed doing independent study and wanted to continue doing independent study. And so they were at Independence High School. Some of those students did the traditional independent study, and some did similar to what a number of our students did, the distance learning, where you had synchronous instruction throughout the day. So you can see that the total numbers were a bit under what our projections were, and this is pretty common throughout the state as a number of families did pursue other choices such as homeschooling or other avenues. So I'm not going to go through all of these in detail. These are some of our financial changes from our adopted budget. There were a lot of changes as we had some of the significant had to do with our COVID funding and the way the state rolled out that funding. We had some of it that was accounted for last year instead of this year. And so those are some of the large changes. What you'll also see, a large number is the reduction in LCFF revenue For the reduction as students, you'll see increases to special education as the state has provided more special education revenue. One of the other big numbers you'll see on the bottom is expenditures, $4.4 million for the settlements that were recently approved. That includes the 3.5% salary increase as well as the one-time stipend. And the other large expense you'll see is the increase to other fund contributions. That's where the district used some of the one-time money to make contributions to other funds for the next 5 years. So trying to prepay a lot of those expenditures towards deferred maintenance, towards our fund that's used to replace our synthetic fields and turf. So we're trying to utilize the money, a lot of this one-time money to our benefits. This is a very high-level executive summary where you see the total revenues at adopted budget compared to our revised budget as well as the expenditures. And you'll see we're projecting a pretty significant deficit spending this year. A lot of that has to do with the COVID funding, and what you'll see in the multi-year projection as things even out over the next 2 years, we're in a much better financial situation. This was the multi-year I presented to the board back in September. And as you can see, back in September, we are projecting deficit spending of $1.1 million in 23-24. And yet we still had unassigned and available fund balances. What you'll see now is after all the changes in 23-24, even with the salary increases, in the latest projections, we have a surplus in 23-24 of $399,000 and about $3.14 million in 24-25 as we added another year to start looking at what that third year looks like. One of the items, and Mr. Constant mentioned it, was the state reserve cap that is expected to be implemented starting next year. That is that school districts cannot have greater than a 10% ending fund balance. The reserves cannot be any greater than that. As you can see, in both 22-23 and 23-24, we're at about 9%. In 24-25, it looks like we're projected to be a little bit north of 10%, but not significantly. But we do anticipate this coming January some potential large increases to funding based on what comes out from the government, but we'll know that in just about a month. And so I will be bringing back updated projections and updated news to the board in January when the governor's budget is released.
So Joe, let me stop you. So this could be, if we were over 10% at the end of 1 year, that could be something where we could have a policy that says anything over 10% automatically goes into a 115 plan. And then if we were short in a future year, we could use that 115 plan to pay some of the current, pension expenses, and then sort of use that as our own float if we needed to.
Yep, I think that would be one option. Another one would be, I think one of you mentioned it was about when we get one-time funding, we could make that a priority of putting a percentage of all one-time funding that we receive from the state towards pension, setting it aside for future pension obligations. So I think there's a number of, but yeah, that 10% would be one we could do as well.
Good.
And this is a summary of our other funds outside of the general fund. One of the items I'll just point out too, because it's a pretty big difference, is our cafeteria fund. So that we've received quite a bit more money than we have been projecting, and a lot of it is because we're producing meals to all of our students in a pretty efficient manner. A lot more students are taking advantage of that, and our labor costs are significantly down. We're trying to hire more food service workers, and we can't find them. And so our labor costs, our expenses are way down, and our revenues are way up. And so our cafeteria fund is in a really good shape, but we are looking at utilizing that extra funding to position us going forward as food services is going to be changing in the future, as we're going to be providing meals for all students for free, the state and federal government reimbursements. So we're looking at providing more vending machines, providing more grab-and-go vending machines, looking at a lot of options of how we can utilize that funding to provide better service for our students. So that's just one I wanted to point out, and is one that's constantly changing as the food service program is changing quite a bit. You'll also see some of the other funds, some bigger increases, and that's what I mentioned earlier, how we prepaid some of our future payments to other funds, such as Fund 14 and Fund 40, the Deferred Maintenance Fund, so that we can better position ourselves for future deferred maintenance costs, similar to what we're talking about with pension, but looking at those other funds and how we can prepay and make sure, which we haven't quite received yet, but we are anticipating our first state reimbursement in the next month or two for West Park Phase 1 of about 30.6 million. So this was an application we sent in, I believe, early 2017. So we're finally going to get that state matching funds back. So I'm excited about finally getting that money back, which we'll be able to use to pay for construction of West Park Phase 2 that we're doing now. As for next steps, I mentioned earlier, we have Governor Newsom's January budget, which will be coming out. And so as soon as that's, we'll be going to workshops and listening to the different consultants to find out what that means for school districts. And we're also entering our budget development process. So there'll be future items coming to the board about some of the items we talked about, like fund balance policy. So we'll look at a document we call the Budget Purposes, Constraints, and Guidelines, which is really kind of our roadmap for developing the budget. And so that'll be an opportunity where not only the board, but the public can weigh in on our budget process. And then further in March, we'll be producing the second interim budget report, which is the next iteration of what we're doing today. So that concludes my presentation, but happy to answer any questions.
Jacob, any questions? No? Board members, any questions? If not, is there a motion to approve? Is that a second? Okay. It's been moved by Board Member Tag and seconded by Board Member Constant. Vote to approve? Okay. Board members, all those who vote to approve, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. 11.5, public disclosure of fiscal year 21-22 non-represented groups agreement / ratification of agreement and superintendent and assistant superintendent education services salary adjustments.
Last item, moving again, but this is the, we recently settled with RSEA and had the disclosure agreement. This is all the non-represented groups. So this includes administrators, cabinet, support services, confidential, Roseville adult school teachers, and classified managers. And so the purpose of this item is to disclose the impacts of providing the exact same salary increase to all our non-represented groups. What you notice that's a little bit different is based on the contracts for the superintendent as well as the assistant superintendent of education services. It did not have the language that the other assistant superintendents had in it, where they would receive the exact same amount that certificated administrators receive. So we wanted to call that out and make sure that in order for them to receive the increase, that we modified their contracts. And so there is leeway in the contracts to do that because the board can approve increases to their contracts in their language. So staff recommends that the board approve these public disclosures, including the adjustments to the superintendent and assistant superintendent ed services contracts.
Okay, and we've received no items for public comment on this item. So board members, any questions? Hirota, move to approve.
I'll second.
And a second by Tag. Good, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. 11.6, authorization of certificated employee to teach outside their credential authorization. Brad.
Thank you. Yes, the purpose of this item is to authorize both Elizabeth Henderson, who's a teacher at Granite Bay High School, as well as David Nelson, who's a teacher at Antelope High School, to teach outside their credential area during the 2021-22 school year pursuant to Education Code 44258.3. Both Ms. Henderson and Mr. Nelson are highly qualified teachers. They hold authorizations or credentials in other areas of science, chemistry, and or biology. They've volunteered to teach physics for this school year, 2021-22. They've showed content mastery through observations as well as examination of their lesson plans and unit plans. And so they're being recommended without any reservation. In the past, they've actually taught this class in the past as well, and we used a limited assignment permit called the GLAP. They're no longer able to use the GLAP. We're limited in the number of times that you can do that. In the meantime, they've been preparing to take their exam,
We're hopeful that this spring that they're going to get that authorization permanently put on their credential. So we're asking for this local authorization for this school year. And then hopefully we won't have to come up here next year to do this. Okay, members, any questions or comments?
I want to teach encourage that to happen. If they want to, they feel confident. It's a hard thing to recruit for. That is a motion.
For a second. Moved and second. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries.
Thank you.
11.7 Local Control Accountability Plan, LEA Federal Addendum.
Yes, thank you. This is our standard document that accompanies the LCAP and specifies how we spend our title funds, and it has other federal guidelines that we have used and completed. So it's just as a reminder, all the dollars spent in our title fund, Title I, go through the school site council, which is the bulk of this. And this is in line with and above and beyond what we do with our LCAP. So we use a similar process, and this staff recommend approval.
Members, any questions, comments, thoughts? If not, is there a motion? Second. All right, so moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Okay, item 12.1, pending agenda items. I'm not going to read it, mostly because I can't, because my laptop shut off. Next regularly scheduled meeting is January 13th, 2022, and that will be open session at 6:30. Is that right? We did conclude at 6:30, yes? Okay. All right, board and staff comments. Let's start down here. If you want to jump in, you can. Brad.
Ditto for me. You heard enough from me.
It's been a great semester, and I've been at the schools. Really enjoy all the festivities, and Happy New Year.
Any thoughts? Heidi, please.
It's been a year since mine and Pete's first meeting. So it feels in some ways like a few months and some ways like several years. So it's been a great first year. I feel like we're making a lot of progress. So that's exciting. I don't know if I missed the pending agenda item because it happened so fast. And I don't know if it's an agenda item or just a question for Mr. Basham about the status of allowing teachers to do the home tests. I don't know if that's an agenda item. It was just a dialogue we were having about maybe in the new year, allowing teachers to do the home test instead of the testing on site. Okay, I didn't know if it was something that has to be us. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, excited for 2022, and congratulations, President Scott, Vice President Julie, and Clerk Pete, Clerk Constant. That flows better.
Well, congratulations for surviving your first year. And congratulations to the three of you for surviving us through the first year. And staff as well. I know we don't always make it easy. I just wanted to point out briefly that I know we got a slew of emails about an event at Granite Bay High School that made a little bit of a kerfuffle out there. I went out there to watch the fashion meeting, I think is how they termed it. And I went because there was a lot of concern, a lot of speculation over what it might be or not be. And I thought, what a better way to find out than just to go. And so I went there, and I just wanted to say it was nothing like what it may have been portrayed to be. It was actually Shemaine was out there too. So the two of us and a bunch of other people were there. It was actually a very good format of having a casual conversation with some experts in the field of fashion. And it really wasn't about fashion, it was about dress code. So I think that the students learned a bit about how to advertise things to get the right group of people there. Because I think it would have been, it was a good event, and I think it would have benefited from more participation, but because of the angst, I think it kept some people from going. But I think it was a good learning experience for the students. I think it was very well run. It was a very respectful conversation. There were people who disagreed, but it's great to take on those issues where you don't have agreement, talk it through so people can see all sides. So overall, it was a great event, and we learned not only about the student concerns about dress code, but we learned a lot about how those events can move forward. The administration was there. It was just a really good experience. So the net is it wasn't the stressor that everyone thought it might be. It was actually really nice. I encourage them to do more, and I love those type of events, and I think it's great that our kids are able to feel like they can have them on their campus and talk about the issues that really impact them. So I know we'll be talking about dress code more based on what came out of there. We'll save that for another day.
I just want to note that it's 8:30 and we're almost done, Andrew. Thank you, President Scott. Oh, okay, okay. All right. Good first year with you guys. I just saw on Facebook that I was sworn in 5 years ago. So it was like, oh man, and the year went by sort of fast, sort of slow. But anyway, I want to thank Granite Bay High School. I got to take a tour and visit the classrooms last month. I was here at the last meeting to thank everyone for that. So thank you, Dr. Moore and Ms. Layton for doing that. And I also wanted to thank Dr. Moore for spending so much time on curriculum instruction with me, because I really appreciate going over what's happening. And so appreciate that. And I want to thank everybody. It's been a really interesting year, and it's been really good having you two both come on board, providing new and different and interesting perspectives. So that's made us all stronger. So thank you for that. And Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Apologize for popping out. I had to go see my son's Christmas concert for half an hour, 20 minutes or so. And it's great to see the band in real life. So that was fantastic.
Well, Pete's officially onboarded now. We haven't finished that. Oh, you didn't tell me about it. And I can't believe we only had 2 speakers on agenda items for your first meeting. I was kind of hopeful there'd be 40 or 50 to welcome you to this new role, but Scott, you're going to do a great job. You know, you're solid all the time, and congratulations. Continue on with this work and about it, and it's exhausting, and it was sort of like a finish line that just had to cross at the end. And I would concur, Pete, Heidi, you brought some new energy that certainly helped me, and I might speak for my colleagues a little bit. You know, both, but I think overall positive. You know, mostly positive. And it's when I reflect on this, I will look back on this in a period of growth for me personally, and I think I handled it as best I could, and I thank you all for being there. And I'll fondly hang my plaque when the dates are put on there. And I know Barbara ordered it, and they did it incorrectly, but we've accomplished a lot. I say this all the time. I think we've done so much over these last 2 years. Scott, you've been there. Julie, you've been there. Pete, Heidi, we've done what's right for the students. We've had a lot of restrictions on us from the state, and we've been able to do a job that's needed, and with the help of our staff, the district office, and our teachers, and Without our teachers, we wouldn't be able to do what we've done. They've been supportive. They've navigated through the processes, and so I appreciate that. And Jessica, thank you for your support. I see you're still back there with us, and all the teachers that do what they do for us. I truly mean that from the bottom of my heart, and I know the board appreciates it. So thank you. And one final thing I did do is a tour. My last tour as board president with the CSBA president, Dr. Heredia, who sits on Thomas, and myself, and Renee Nash, and Lisa Fong. And I love to see other people look at West Park High School. It's still, we've seen it all now, and it's still amazing to me. But to watch people who've never seen it before, it's just incredible. And I actually invited the CEO of my company, First Northern Bank, because they so supportive of my time here, and she wanted to come, and she couldn't have been more thrilled either. Her eyes were all big, and just walking through that school, and just amazing stuff. So Merry Christmas, everybody, and we'll see you in the new year. Scott.
Jacob for sticking it out tonight, fell tight here. So congratulations to him for making it through. I just wanted to recognize Granite Bay High School. They got best overall at the Create Mentoring Program competition. Create is a mentoring program that exists to educate and ignite high school students to pursue career pathways which create the built environment. So Mr. Steve Dolan and his students in the Create program, we got to watch them practice their presentation, competing against schools from all around the region, and they did get best overall. So congratulations to the Granite Bay students and Mr. Dolan. Outside of that, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year to all of our staff, students, and parents. I wish you a safe and happy few weeks, and we'll see you soon.
Wrap it up. The board members, I want to thank you for your confidence in me and to be president. I'll do my best. I will lean on you a lot, and I appreciate your your ideas, your thoughts, your input, and so I really look forward to to this upcoming year. I think there are some really great things ahead for us. That is to take nothing away from where we have been, because I think we have been a district that's been on the forefront of a lot of great things, not the least of which is educational excellence. Jessica, you mentioned in your report that it seems like it's been a long time. My wife uses the saying from time to time: the days are really long, but the years are short, and the semesters are even shorter. So it feels like it's been a long time, but man, the semester has flown. I do hope you will underline, bold, italics, all of the comments that Pete and several of us made about making sure that we will deal with the unfunded, pension costs, because those are obligations that we mean, and you have earned it, and your colleagues have earned it, and so we will take care of that. We will honor that, and we'll do it without negatively impacting the quality of education that this district provides. I do want to mention just a moment about CSBA. John was there, and Andrew and Heidi was there, and I went myself, and it was a great time to be there, because there were so many individuals that wanted to connect on so many different things that we were able to talk. I talked to one group, and Julie, I'll fill you in on it, because I know you like to, you're really interested in learning loss. There was some really interesting things that some groups were doing, and I thought it was amazing that the San Bernardino City School District, I can't remember, I didn't get the name right, but it's the school district in the city of San Bernardino. They're doing some amazing mentoring things with individuals from the community coming in and mentoring kids that need it, so that teachers can still do their thing. And anyway, it's a great program. I got the lady's card, and I said, I'll call you. And of course I said, I'll stop by. And she looked at me like, what do you mean stop by? And I said, well, I have a lot of clients in San Bernardino, so I'll just come by and see you. So anyway, it was really a great opportunity to connect with other individuals, but most importantly, it was great to connect with colleagues. I will say this: I partly hope that they're listening, and I partly hope that they're not. But I do miss the principals and seeing their smiling faces. I'm sure they don't miss us, and that's okay. But I will finally say, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I look forward to what the new year will bring for us in 2022. And with that, meeting adjourned.